G'day, it's Lindsay Waddington, and I'm so proud to say we've got a great mate of mine, Matt Scullion, master songwriter. How you going, Matt?
I'm really good, Lindsay. How are you, mate? Thanks for having me on your show.
It's great, mate. So, mate, I know that you've had over 20 number one hits in Australia, or internationally.
There's been that many.
Yeah, well, say your discography or whatever it says. Is that the right word?
That'll do.
Yeah, it's more than 20, so I just couldn't remember how many, so it's over 20. How good's that?
It is, mate. I've been very blessed. I've been very blessed to work with some wonderful people, and most of those have been co-writes. There's been a few that I've written on from my albums myself that I've had those number ones, but most of those have been co-writes with people like Lee Kernaghan and Travis Collins and Sarah Storer and
That's
people
huge,
like that.
mate.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, while we're talking about Lee, so for people around the world, there wouldn't be a lot, but Lee Kernaghan is like a huge deal in Australian music. He is just a great ambassador for our industry. Australian of the Year, won everything you can win.
He's the biggest.
And a lovely bloke.
Yeah.
And I love him to bits. He's a great fella. You actually were very prominent on writing songs on his albums. There's been a couple of albums where you wrote half or better.
There was a stage. There was a period there for two albums with Lee. Lee invited me to be involved in those two albums. Planet Country album, I had 7 songs on that.
Wow.
And I think Beautiful Nights, I've got 5 or 6 songs on those albums. And it was just, right place, right time, being there with going down. I spent a lot of time at Lee's place up here in Queensland writing with him, and but also down at Garth Porter's studio in Sydney. Became really good mates with Garth, and we would write together, and then often Colin Buchanan would call in, or James Blundell would call in, and we'd finish the songs off with those guys. But the best part about it, and the part that I'm most proud of and got the best memories of, because I guess I've got my own style of playing. Yeah. Lee loved my rhythm on a lot of those songs and wanted me to play. So I play guitar on a lot of that stuff. Yeah. And I had the privilege of sitting next to the late Glenn Hanna. And I remember one day in the studio, there's me here, because we live tracked everything. Yeah. There's me sitting there on the guitar. There's Glenn Hanna next to me. There's Ian Lees on bass. May he rest in peace too. And then obviously the great Ted Howard mixing in the thing, and Garth overlooking it all. Then you look out the back room on acoustic guitar is Rod McCormack, Pat Drummond, and then obviously Lee, maybe Lee on the piano or something in the room putting down live piano as we're doing it. And the tracks were amazing. And I was sitting there thinking, I don't belong here. And Lee kept reassuring me, because I felt so out of my depth as a musician, but they were all such lovely fellas.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm sitting next to
royalty,
these guys, and I'm a songwriter. I'm not a session guitar player. But Lee wanted me there because of the groove. So everybody played to the chart. Yeah. But they played to my groove. Yeah. And it was amazing. At least, bring Matt's guitar up. His guitar's got to be prominent in the mix so that we can play to that groove.
Yeah, wow.
And it was, sometimes they might have gone back and redone some of those guitar parts, but my guitar was the one that set the scene, and it was a real honour and pleasure to be there.
So those albums, like Lee doesn't rush it. He's a big deal. I know everything's big production, and I know it's always, he puts 150% into it. Going into a writing session like that, do you go in with preconceived ideas as a songwriter, or does Lee give you, we want to write about this or that, or?
Everything comes from Lee. Yep. Lee, there's probably only one song I've written with Lee that it was a song already started by Laurie Minson and I, a song called Scars. And we already had a little bit of an idea for it, and I took it to Lee, with the melody and all that, and then Lee turned around and said, look, I love it, but that and I look back on it now and he was right. Lee, there's one great thing about Lee is he doesn't always know what he wants, but he knows what he doesn't want. Yeah. And that's so important in an artist, He said, I love the idea, I love the words you've got, but the groove is probably not me. So we went and we changed that. But everything else that I've ever written with Lee has started from Lee's head. Lee said, here's the idea, and then we write from there.
You as a songwriter, Matt, because you've written some of our great songs out here and been a part of co-writes with some of our greatest writers, do you ever get into a song as a songwriter and think, oh man, this is not my thing? Can you then just sort of click out to another person and go, I'll write about that? Or you you need to write about what you know?
Not always. That often that still happens where I might be writing with a young artist who writes a bit more abstract. I'm not an abstract writer. I'm a real meat and potatoes writer and conversational writer. You know, I love that old school. I love the old school, like, you picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille. You know, those kinds of songs. It doesn't have to be that style of song, but that conversation, that very lots of
That technique, sort of.
that technique. Lots of furniture in the room. Lots of pictures and pictures and so if I'm writing sometimes with the younger artists, it might be a little bit more poppy and abstract.
Yeah.
I struggle with that, but I still work very hard to try and write like that. You know, I won't say, no, this is not how I write.
Do you try and bring it back into like more neutral ground where you are, or now you just try and stay with them and just stay out in
I try
that?
and bring it back. I say, well, look, this is what I do, and you've obviously picked me because you like what I do.
Great advice.
So if we're going to write with me, then you're going to get a bit of me in there. But I still will try and make a little bit of it. I can see, okay, they don't want to say it so literal. The abstract stuff, they don't want to be so literal. They want to try and say it a bit more different or a bit more out there where the listener's got to think about it a bit more. Mm-hmm. So I'll try and go that way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now, you've also been lucky enough to be a paid writer and go to America. I know a lot of Australians think that that's the pathway, get on that freeway and get to Nashville. It's a big place when you get there. It's a small place, but it's a big place to break in because there's so much talent in that country doing their own thing.
It is. But I've always looked at Nashville as, or anywhere like that as, you know, you're not, a lot of people say, you know, how do you compete? You don't compete. If you've got something different to say, you know, then you'll be on your own. You'll be out on your own pedestal. You'll be there if you're different enough. If you're trying to just write like everybody else or trying to write to just get songs on the radio, what's happening now, then you're competing.
Yeah.
Depends if you're going there as a writer or an artist.
How were you sent there then, Matt? Were you sent there as an instinctive writer, or were you sent there where you were like 10 to 12 and then you had a slot 2 to 5? You know how they have songwriting sessions? Were you sent there, because I know you had a deal, we don't have to go into that, but you're actually like a paid writer. Were you in sessions where you had to just come up with the goods, you booked from 10 till 12 with somebody? You were?
I did.
Was that weird?
I struggle with doing 3 a day, but I could do 2 a day.
Yeah.
You know, I know that there's some fellas over there, like people like Lindsay Waddington and Phil Barton, friends of mine. You know, Phil can do 4 a day.
Wow.
He's a machine. I don't know how he does it, but good on him. I mean, he's got some great songs. I couldn't do that. I'm not an Alan Caswell. Alan Caswell can come up with words like that. I'm a slower writer. Mm-hmm. I have to mull it over a little bit, you know, a little bit more. Everybody writes differently, you know, and I often find that the real craft in writing is in the edit.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you then?
You go away and you think about it, you know.
Well, in that situation then, so you're just say you're booked from 10 till 12 and then 2 till 5 or whatever the afternoon session. Do you actually, like you're usually with another 2 or 3 other people? Yeah. Now, do you get the chance to edit, or no, when you leave that room it's done? Or you can?
I think it's more important in those rights to get a good verse and a chorus.
And then you can ring them around.
You don't have to finish the song. Just get a good idea started. Get a good idea started and then book another write. Yeah. Because you're better off getting a really good verse or a really good chorus and going away being excited about that rather than just trying to finish a song and going away and going, it's not that good. And then the artist will forget about it. But if you've got a really good chorus or a really good verse, then that artist will want to rebook another write. And that's the way that I look at it.
What do you chase first? The hook or
I
the
write
chord?
backwards. I write backwards.
Yeah?
Definitely. We were talking about that before. If you've got doesn't have to be a hook. I call it a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Right, a bumper sticker, you know, like say 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yep.
You know what it means straight away. If I had to come up with that, which I really wish I did, I would have written that backwards. So you've got, you know what the end of the song is, 5 o'clock somewhere, or what the message is. Then I usually try and write a chorus. Mm-hmm. And once I've got that chorus, then I start thinking about the verse. But not always. It changes. But usually when I write on my own for myself, I always start with an idea and I always try and get the chorus first.
Yeah, that's great. Isn't it funny how we talk to, like, a song's never dead, is it?
No.
Like, you've just got a major cut coming out of the States now. And how old's that song?
12 years old.
That's so good, isn't it? Did you forget about it and go, oh, wow.
I did. And I put up a post the other day to sort of celebrate it, and I actually said it's funny how time takes its own sweet time.
Yeah.
And it does. You just don't know. And when the song's ready, I know that I've read some stuff. I know the song Rodeo, or Rodeo, whatever you want to call it, that Garth Brooks had a big hit with. That song was 12, 14 years old before it got... And I also have heard another story from the late, great Ralph Murphy, who was in ASCAP in Nashville. You know, I talked to him. He wrote Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue. Big song. He saw 5 or 6 different versions of The House That Built Me that Miranda Lambert recorded. He saw it in different songwriter things that he went to in Nashville, and that song over 10 years had different forms till it finally got to where it was, and then Miranda Lambert recorded it. So a song's never dead in the water.
Yeah.
Never. And you just keep digging for it until it's right. You know when it's right. You feel it. You feel it inside. Every line sings effortlessly. It's like having a conversation. When a song's right, it's like having a conversation. That's how easy it feels.
I'm going to ask you something else. Now, this is, I won't mention their name, but it's very, this I never thought of as songwriting, okay? Do you now type or do you still write?
I type.
Do you?
I type. I was really glad when they come out because, I'd much rather type. I know people love the feel of paper and
That's
pen,
what I was going to say. They said, no, we just can't get the heart into it. And they still just, they're right-handed. The writing of it, the scribbling it out, that whole process and stuff. Isn't it funny how different minds work, though?
Cup of tea, cup of coffee.
Yeah, I know,
whatever works for you, you know what I mean?
It's minds, though.
Yeah. I that thing has never affected the way I write, whether I do it on paper or whether I do it on computer. It doesn't, no.
I only stop with computers because I've gone through so much. Like, I've got that much bloody liquid paper on it.
On the computer.
That's fantastic, mate. Now, I hope you're taking the blinkers off a lot of people. Now, do you worry about rhyme schemes and all that sort of thing, Matt?
Yeah, of course I do think about rhymes, you know, because it's nice to have it, but there's also soft rhymes.
Yeah.
And, sometimes when you sing it, it just sounds, if it sounds good and it seems to work, well, then it works.
Yeah.
I run everything past my dear wife, Sharon, Shaz, and she will often, sometimes she comes back and goes, no, it doesn't sound right. And if I'm really passionate about it and I'm adamant about it, I stick to it, and then sometimes she comes back around and goes, actually, the more I listen to it, I think you're right. But then sometimes she's right too, and I'm like, yeah, no, that is a bit too far away from the mark, So every song's different, every line's different.
In all your travels and that, like you've been in some mighty big songwriting situations and that, have you ever heard a song going home from radio or something on the radio and thought, oh man, if I could have wrote that song, what song would it be? Like, you just heard that one song and you're like, God, I wish I wrote that.
Probably, I reckon The Drover's Boy by Ted Egan. That song to me is seamless. It's flawless. It's just there's so many different songs. I mean, I'm just trying to think. Wow, True Blue by John Williamson.
Yeah.
Wow, what a song. What an amazing song, and what a great life that song's had.
I can actually see you've said those two. Isn't it interesting? Because one of my favourite songs is Aussie As.
Yeah, okay.
That you and Paulie wrote.
Yeah. And
isn't it, so subconsciously those sort of stories have gone into you and you're like now producing songs like that?
Yeah. Actually, no, if I can come back to the song I really wish I'd written, okay, and I actually had a chance to be in on the write and I said no. The song I wish I'd written was Flying with the King. I was up at Lee Kernaghan's place and we were getting ready for a write. And he goes, Maddie, come here, I want to play you something I'm working on, but I don't know if it's right yet. Maybe you can help me out with it. Garth and I think Colin Buchanan, we've been working on it a bit. And he sat down and he played it for me, Flying with the King, and I just had shivers. I'm like, Lee, that is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. He goes, really, mate? So even someone like Lee Kernaghan who's had an amazing career,
still asks.
We all need opinions. Like, we all need to ask people, and because we're so close to what we do, we need to sign off on it from other people to sign off on it. Anyway, I turned around, I said, mate, I don't want to touch that song. It's beautiful, Lee. I said, yeah, look, I could jump on it for the sake of jumping on it, but I'm not going to. I couldn't do anything better to that song if I tried. I would have loved to have written that song. That's a gorgeous song.
That's important. So, Lee, if you're listening out there, mate, and you need a passenger and just put somebody's name on a song like that, I'm the bloke.
But look, I had 5 other songs on the album anyway. So, but that song there it's just gorgeous, and the record. I played on the recording.
Yeah,
I was playing acoustic guitar on the recording of that.
Do you know the thing I love about this chat, Matt? And you haven't even thought of this, but I'm a patriotic. I love Australia, and I've been lucky enough to travel the world with music, and I can appreciate we have guns all around the world, and I love all styles of music. But I love Australian stories. That's where I've travelled all my life, and that's where I live. Did you know? It makes me proud to sit. You've written in big areas all around the world, written big songs. Every time you've mentioned a song I wished I wrote or a song that influenced me, they're all Australian and about Australian stories. That's impressive, mate. That's really great.
Well, I love it. I like to think that someone asked me a while back, they said, what would you like on your tombstone? And I said, I had a real good think about it, and I said, he was a good bloke and he tried to tell Australia's story. And that's what I try and do, just to be a nice fella if I can.
Yeah.
Treat people the way that I'd like to be treated, but to tell Australia's story. And look, there's many people out there that have done it before me. John Williamson, Ted Egan, guys like that, Paul Kelly, but hopefully I can do it in my own way. Maybe I can find things that those guys haven't said yet, because there's so many stories out there. You just got to travel. You just got to get out there and talk to people. Everybody's got a story, and I want to be one of those people that tells those stories.
We're talking about songwriting with one of our premier songwriters here in Australia, and he's written some of the greatest hits in our culture and also around the world. Matt, if you're going to write a song, we'll just do something now for the people out there watching. If we're going to write a song for me, and I've come to you today, what's the first thing you'd do?
Sit down and talk to you.
Yep.
Sit down and talk to you and find out, who you are, where you're at. Actually, a very important thing that I think is, I often teach at the Academy of Country Music down in Tamworth, and I do songwriting tunes. The first thing I always ask the students is I say, what are you missing from your set?
Interesting.
What do you need? What kind of a song do you think you haven't got in your set, be it
a show.
In your show, is it be it a rhythm, like a tempo, or be it a subject matter? What are you missing? So if you were doing an album when we were going to write for you, I would, and I didn't know you, I would obviously sit down and talk to you and find out who you were, get a feel of who you are, and then find out what you haven't got, and then we'll stick that in there. Because if I'm going to take all my time to write with you, then I want you to record that song. Yeah. So I want a song that you don't have, that you feel compelled to record.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, you've got some wonderful advice, and the thing I think you're going to be able to help a lot of people, I reckon you should look into going into some sort of school or something, or online, where you can help people with songwriting. It's just an idea. I think down the track, if you'd help a lot of people, you're a great person to where you've got ears. You're not just like, no, this is the way it's done. And I think you'd be able to help a lot of people. That should be something you should think about, mate.
I'd actually love to do something like that. I do a lot of online writing. I still write with a lot of people in Nashville and help them fix their songs up or write new songs with them and stuff like that. So I love doing that kind of thing. But I think it's very important to listen, And look, when I'm writing for myself, it's a different thing. It's a totally different thing. But when I'm writing for somebody else, it's not about me. It's getting the best possible song for them. So if I can help them do that, well then great. And if I can get a song on their album, even better.
If you could write one song and an artist, past or present, would record it, who would the artist be?
I'd love to write a duet with Paul Kelly.
There you go, eh?
Love Paul Kelly. I'd love to write something that or even start something that he felt compelled to go, wow. And then maybe we could sing it together.
There you go, Paul.
I'd love to do that. So if you're listening, Paul, I'd love to do that with you, mate.
Another wonderful Australian singer-songwriter and storyteller.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's really great, Matt. Thank you, mate.
No, thank you.
Thanks for having a yak.
Yeah.
Matt Scullion.
Good on you, mate. Cheers, everybody.